We're so glad you're here.
We believe in bringing in experts to inspire and to educate women so that they can live empowered, fulfilled, and successful lives.
When women support women, we change the world. Here we go.
You're going to love this program.
So excited for today's conversation. Tell me a little bit about who we're talking to.
Oh, we have a dynamite speaker. I'm so excited. She is a CEO, board member, mentor, coach, truly a role model for all business leaders. Earlier in her career, she was both a board consultant and a president and CEO of a private company. And she now serves on the boards of public and private companies in various capacities, including board chair, compensation committee chair, nominating and governance committee chair, and audit committee member. She's also the current president of the Chicago chapter of the Private Directors Association and on the board of industry leaders for the Consumer Technology Association. In addition to her direct board work, she's also the lead for the Midwest practice for an international center for executive options. It's a boutique practice within LHH, which is a global talent advisory firm serving C-suite executives. And in her spare time, she has a very busy household, a very supportive husband, and loves the outdoors. And from my experience, she's a wonderful addition to a golf foursome. Our speaker is Sally Washlow. Welcome to the Recharge, Sally.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to our conversation.
Yeah, so do we. When I was looking back, first of all, we're so grateful to your past contributions to our community. I know you had led a wonderful program on becoming a member of a paid board and helping women to understand, some of the strategies and key ways of doing that. But I couldn't remember how we were first connected. We have such an overlap in our personal and professional lives.
Yes, we do have so many overlaps, and I really enjoy the conversations that I've had with your group. And I continue on that journey to support women to join boards, to start that journey to join boards and learn more about giving back and serving on a board, whether it's a public company board, private company board, or even a non-for-profit board. There's so many ways that women can give back to businesses and their communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Nancy and I talk to women all the time that are really looking to make that pivot and pursue that on a full-time basis.
Mm-hmm. It's really rewarding. And ironically, it didn't come up naturally for me, even though I was on a board as a member of a management team. I had a wonderful group of advisors that supported me that gave me this aha moment where they said, "What about pursuing more boards, Sally?" And I thought, well, I don't do that. I operate companies, and sometimes you need people to state the obvious. And they did.
Well, I love that. And so that's actually how we like to kick off our conversation. Our theme for our Women's Forum this year has been designing and living your brilliant life, which I think describes your life for sure. So tell us a little bit about that journey that you mentioned your advisors suggested you jump on this approach to pivoting in your career. What was it that led you to do this?
Well, as always, it doesn't start overnight, and it was a series of things. So if I look back even at my entire career, I always had a sense of, am I enjoying what I do, and grounding myself in that. So as I did that and always taking on new challenges, and there was one key theme to that as well. I never wanted to be bored in the sense of not boardroom, bored, nothing to do and not challenged. So, and I also knew when to walk away. So with all of that, I leaned into support that I had, whether it was through mentors or almost building my own personal board of advisors to help and support me in this journey. That really helped me design today what I am doing. So I always go back to leaning on others in your lives and then others that you meet along the journey to help and support you to think through what is the next stage in your career?
Mhm.
And that's a lot of my journey of just leaning into others.
Nice. Well,
It's
and that's a big pivot to go from operator.
yeah,
Sorry, Nancy. Let me
not
just
at all.
finish this one. Just to go from operator to strategic advisor. Was that a hard pivot to make? Because it's a different mindset, isn't it?
It was tremendously hard to make. And, I think that would even fold into one of the biggest challenges of my life. I loved what I did, and there were structural changes going on that I felt that it was time for me to move on. And at first I thought, well, I'm just going to go operate another company. That's what I do. And that was the only path that I was going on. And through a team of advisors that I worked with, they opened up my mind and aperture to other things that I had a little bit of experience with, but not a lot. It was a lot different to be a member of a board as the operator and CEO of the company versus truly being an
Mm.
independent
Mhm. Mhm.
advisor as well. So I had to take a leap of faith that this is what I wanted to do and pursue, and not necessarily leave that other world behind. But I did have to think about, is it boards, and I'm on multiple boards, that I wanted to explore, or was it that I wanted to make a pivot and maybe not operate a company anymore? And I ultimately decided to do that. But it didn't come through overnight. It came through a series of conversations and myself go on the journey, and take the time and reflect to make sure this is what I wanted to do now. And I would also say that doesn't mean that it's not always what I'm going to do in the future as well. Maybe there comes a time
Hmm.
when I operate a company again. But I would also add that being on a board, I know I would be a better operator as well. So even if
Mhm.
you are operating a
Interesting.
company, maybe carving out that time to be on a board, whether it's a public or private or nonprofit company, that additional perspective that you get, I feel like I've gained more than I've given.
Mm. One of the themes that I hear kind of surfacing, Sally, is courage. That seems to be embedded in your DNA, whether that's asking for support, or going out and asking people to be on your personal board of directors, or really just being courageous and investing the time in yourself. Tell me a little bit about what inspires you to push boundaries, to be more of who you can be, and to serve others.
I think some of the courage comes from the counterbalance of what I shared earlier of I do not like to be bored. So I've always pushed myself in ways to learn something new, to take on a challenge of a role that I've never done before.
Mhm.
And so with that, the counterbalance of not being bored, because I had one job that I was bored in and that didn't last that long, um, was always looking for what is the next opportunity, what is the next challenge, what can I accomplish? And so I've always pushed myself to push the boundaries, but if
Mhm.
I reflect upon that, even when I was younger, growing up, I had really good women leaders around me that they were pushing boundaries as well. And I was fortunate, one of my aunts was the first woman to get her CPA in Illinois. So, as I learned as a kid, even through casual conversations around the Thanksgiving table, I had these natural leaders that I looked up to. And while you're going through the process, I didn't think about it as much as now when I reflect upon it.
Mhm.
Of what made me push myself so much was these role models that I was fortunate enough to have, not only in my life, but in my family. So they gave me the courage that I could do more than I thought, and to accept roles that maybe I thought were challenging,
Mhm.
um, and being able to learn from those experiences, being able to witness what they did.
Something that I'm hearing you say is that your boredom, when you got bored, that's what inspired both your courage, perhaps, and your curiosity.
It certainly did. As I mentioned, I had one job that I was really bored at in my career, notwithstanding high school jobs that I might have had. So with that, that made me think I can be very deliberate about what I do in my career, and I was fortunate to have the power to choose some of those paths. But also, I had the courage to accept some of those paths as well. One example is when I became a product manager, I really didn't understand the role now that I'm reflecting upon it until my brother called and said, "You took a job as a product manager? You're responsible for a lot of the revenue of the company. And if you make the wrong choice, you're going to bankrupt the company." And I thought to myself, well, nobody told me that in the interview process. So, so, um, but I didn't quit. I pursued it, and it was one of the best roles and helped me develop into a better leader as well.
I love that. Those brothers, aren't they? Aren't they real supportive
right?
and encouraging there?
They can always add in a dose of truth serum for you.
Yeah. So Sally, you talked about serving, and actually that's one of the aspects that you really like about your board work. So how do you help others? I know you work a lot with leaders, especially women, where I know diversity on boards is a big issue, whether it's gender or racial diversity. And how do you help, especially women, adopt this attitude that comes so naturally to you, this courage and this attitude of belonging at the table, and to step more confidently into their power, and to then to be able to live a more fulfilled life?
I think a lot of it, I do love to support and encourage leaders to follow that path and that journey to the boardroom. And with that though, is starting to position yourself in those opportunities that can present board roles to you, and continuing to learn and be a continuous learner, be curious. I have to say, as I reflect upon my own journey, while I had been on one board, I had to really learn a lot more about what good governance was, what
Mhm.
the language was surrounding boards. And so while I am on several boards today, I am a continual learner of boards and what happens within the boardroom, because the dynamics are always changing. And just this week, I've been on 2 webinars to learn about different rules that are changing within boardrooms. So I encourage people not only to network, that's a big part of it, but to take the time to learn and become more familiar with the language within a board as well. And that's a whole other learning experience that I had to go down from operating a company. I had to start to bring a different perspective to the boardroom than being the member of management
Up
on
to
the board.
sir. Yeah.
Yeah, that is one of the things we talked about in an initial conversation, was that you actually also encourage people to pursue board work earlier in their career.
Yeah, I definitely do. Reflection is a great thing, right?
Mm.
So if I reflect, I would have been a better CEO and leader had I been on at least one other board to learn from their perspective as well. So I encourage people to start early. Sometimes within a role, you might have too many conflicts and can't join a private company board or a public company board, but maybe get involved in nonprofit boards, not just even from the aspect of being on a board. I think that there's, a lot of maybe cachet about that. But what I really enjoy is that ability to give back Am I supportive of the management team? How can I help them be better leaders? And not only that, I mean, the biggest part of my role as a board member on public companies is my fiduciary duty. And am I doing what's right for the shareholders as well?
Right.
But some of that of doing what's right for the shareholders is doing what's right for the management team. And sometimes you have to make those tough decisions. But going back to the original question here, I encourage people to start that journey early. It takes time. You want to be in the right fit for being on a board. And I think the perspective also makes you a better leader in whatever you're doing in your career or organization that you're supporting.
Yeah, I can see that for sure, and I would agree. Starting early, there's so much narrative around joining boards, and I would agree with that encouragement. And I'm curious, Sally, you lead a very fulfilling life. You're very passionate about your work. What are some of your biggest challenges?
Not taking on too much.
Right, saying no.
Saying no
Surprise.
is one of my biggest challenges, and that comes through the support that I want to give people. But I have learned that I can only support people if I have the time to invest with them. If not, it's an empty promise. So I've learned to say no when I don't have that, but it's never, well, there's some hard and fast no's, but most of them are not now. And let me refer someone else to you.
Right.
And let's continue that dialogue. I just can't give you the time.
Right.
So I've probably always taken on a little more than my cup can hold. And making sure that it doesn't completely overflow is a constant challenge.
I bet. Well, that's what you get for being so curious, right? I mean, that curiosity breeds engagement and interest, but setting those boundaries is really important so that you don't burn out and you can continue, right?
Yes, it does. And all of my activities are treated equal in my business world and then even in my passion. Barbara knows this, that I love to play tennis. Well, I'm probably on too many tennis teams as well. And part of that, people ask me why. And it goes back to this curiosity. I love playing new people. One, I get to meet them. Like, wow, I get to meet someone new. But then it's a different challenge because if you only play with the same players, you know their game. You either know how to beat them or they know how to beat you. But trying to figure out someone that you've never played in a 15-minute warm-up of what's their game and how am I going to figure this out? So I do it across all aspects of my life, and it is a big issue. I'm well aware of.
So, Sally, I love that you find such joy in playing tennis on multiple teams as well. What else do you do to kind of exhale and decompress and practice self-care?
I'm fortunate that I in self-care I love to be active. So again, maybe a downside of mine. But when I do sleep, I sleep. So I can bottle that into a compact amount of time. And so to me, I love being active. And then when I stop, then it's time to go to sleep. So I do read. So I find that enjoyable. We have a cabin in northern Wisconsin, and we go on hikes. I'm not really good at sitting around. So when I am sitting around, the joke is even if I'm sitting around to relax to maybe watch tennis, I fall asleep. So when it is downtime time, it's downtime. I'm asleep.
Wow, that's awesome. So it's interesting because I consider sleep a superpower because I don't know many women that like can truly have a great 8-9 hours sleep. So especially somebody so active as you. So I would say sleep might be one of your superpowers, but I'm curious about what are other superpowers that you have And what is one thing that you would do using that superpower to change the world?
Wow. I would think that sleep is a little bit of a superpower for me. And I had that balance as well, even when I traveled a lot in my earlier career, of being able to switch time zones, being able to sleep on a plane and
Wow.
bottle that time up. So I think maybe it's not a superpower exactly, but I think about the power of perspective. And
Mm,
I think I got that at a young age. Being able to reflect and being able to move on from things that maybe weren't as fulfilling for me as they used to be, and being able to let go of things as well.
yeah. Yeah.
um, I don't hang on
Yeah,
to
great.
things. I move on. So I think that's more of a superpower and being able to develop that at a younger age as well. And wow, if I ran the world, if at all possible, I would get rid of all the nefarious leaders. But I think I would need a
Ah.
superpower to do that. So I need to come up with another one. So,
Oh, I hear that. Perspective is so important, and it is really a superpower. Um, and and I'm going to shift gears a little bit, um, because one of the things we like to do, Sally, is to hear from our guests a little bit about their intentionality around their financial lives.
mhm.
Um, so I'm curious about how you've been intentional over the years with building your financial resilience and your financial resources to care for yourself and those you love.
This was probably a good lesson I learned at a young age as well. That I had an amazing father
Mm,
who was a great mentor as well. And again, I think this goes to perspective, and not only
yeah,
my own
yeah,
perspective, but learning from others as
Mm.
well. So I'm pretty conservative on the financial side. And that comes from a father that grew up during the Great Depression
hmm,
and knew what that was like. So I learned the power of saving. I learned the power of hard work. Um, and there was some luck in there as well with some investments. So sprinkle in some of that. But ever since I was young, I've been a good saver. I find joy in family and friends and experiences, and balancing that with what I want to do financially with my life, and starting at a young age, as you all know,
yeah,
the element of time is a wonderful component
Yes,
when you start from a young age.
yeah.
absolutely.
That is very true. So important. And I'm curious. Growing up with a strong father, did that make it easier for you to have conversations about money with your spouse, your in your family? Is that something that's kind of a dinner table conversation on a periodic basis?
It actually is, and I think
That's
it
great.
did make the conversation easier. I can't say that I was always agreeable with my father, especially as a teenager. Of why can't I buy this, or
Right.
where is my new car, and all of that. So it was it was such a perspective of when I did buy my first car. He said to me, "Well, how did you pay for it?" And I said, "Well, I took out a loan because I don't have all the money for it." And he said, "Well, then you bought too expensive of a car." And I thought to myself,
Ah,
well, what I could afford is probably not drivable on the road as I was starting out in my career. Um, but I have brought that perspective to my family, and sometimes they think I'm too conservative. So guilty.
Got it. Well, but it's just been an important aspect of your life. You're
Yes.
building your financial resources, which we admire. So, before we wrap it up, what's next for Sally?
Wow, I continue to love the journey that I'm on, and really the support that I give to other executives as they're going through this. As I reflect on one of the hardest times in my life was leaving a CEO role to then build what was next. So that part of my career and my life, I feel fortunate that I'm at this point that I can give so much back to others. The board work's amazing as well. I look to my kids wrapping up high school over the next couple years, and I think that opens up the road for other opportunities as well. And sometimes I just let that road unravel and see where it takes me.
I love
Oh,
that.
that's awesome. It sounds like you're going to continue to design and live a brilliant life, Sally, for sure.
I do plan to do that. And I do plan to look at things in chunks of time as well. So, a
Yeah,
major milestone will be coming up. I'll have two kids that are out of high school, and other opportunities and time opens up as well. So,
right.
I look at enjoy where you're at, but also look to the future of what might be next.
Yeah. It reminds me of a saying that Barbara and I often think about of be where your feet are today, be where your feet are. But I also have a sense that the best is yet to come for you. So um, thank you so much. So many great, inspiring nuggets of information today that we can't wait to share with our Women's Forum community. Thanks for being here, Sally.
Thank you for having me today. It was such a pleasure to connect with both of you.